ahead and call this meeting to order. That is so. And if you, I wanted to make an announcement that I, Brenda Shear, Planning Commission Chair, hereby determine that with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic conditions existing in Salt Lake City, including but not limited to this week's spike in Utah COVID-19 hospitalizations and the presence of the more aggressive and contagious Delta variant, that meeting at an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health or safety of those who would be present. So just so everyone knows, commission members will be connecting remotely. And if you are interested in the Planning Commission meeting, you can still access the meetings online. And would you go ahead and put that back up again so we can see, so our visitors can see how they can, so people on TV who's watching on TV or streaming can see how they can actually join the meeting.
Marlene, could you share that slide again? Thank you.
Thank you, Marlene.
So if you, did you want me to read this, Commissioner?
Yes, please, John, go ahead and tell people how to get on.
Okay, sorry I didn't do this earlier. It's like we were having some sound issues, but I think we've got them solved. So if you are at home and you would like to join in the meeting as we're watching here, there is a website here. You can also find this link at our website on the agenda. If for some reason you're having any troubles joining us through WebEx, you can always email us, and we monitor that email address throughout the night at planning.comments@slcgov.com. Can we go to the next slide? If you would like to speak during a public hearing, please wait until that specific public hearing is being held. Make sure we want the relevant comments at the right public hearing. If you'd like to indicate that you'd like to speak, you can always click on this little button on the bottom right hand corner. There's a little hand, and I think we all wish sometimes it was a little bigger and easier to find, but it is there. And if you click on that hand, it'll indicate to us that you would like to speak, and we will make sure that we call on you. After you have spoke, if you will please hit that button one more time so that little hand disappears, so that we know that that you wouldn't like to speak at any additional public hearings. Again, like we said, if you have any issues, feel free to email us and we'll make sure we can do anything we can do to help you connect.
Thank you. All right, first we'll begin with approval of the minutes for July 14th and July 28th, 2021. And I believe we can approve those both at the same time. So do I have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the minutes for the last two meetings.
Thank you, Maureen. Do I have seconds?
I'll second.
That's Amy. Okay, I have a motion from Maureen and a second from Amy. So I'm going to go down the list. Maureen?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Sorry, Adrian, I skipped you. Adrian? Yes or no? Adrian? Okay. A minute's okay with you? Okay, good. Adrian is indicating with a thumbs up that her minutes are okay. Sarah?
Yes.
Okay, that's it. It's 5-0. The motion passes and the minutes are approved. Next comes the report of the chair and the vice chair, and I do not have anything to report. Amy?
I do not either.
Thank you. Now the report of the director. Nick or John?
I don't have anything. I don't know if Nick had anything he wanted to share today.
I don't have any much, but just a few things that some of you may be aware that in this budget year that the City Council adopted in June and then went into effect on July 1st, we were funded 4 new positions in planning. That funding becomes available on September 1, and we are in the process of reorganizing our division with the purpose of being able to focus more on city initiatives and to get those through in a more timely and effective way. And we also had a couple of, as many of you know, a couple people leave. And so we actually have hired 3 people in the last 3 or 4 weeks to fill some existing vacancies. That's one has started, Trevor Ovenden, who came over from Public Utilities and is going to be working at the planning counter. The planning counter, or there's 2 staff people there. They handle all of the application intake and are the first point of contact for any kind of planning or zoning question. And then we also have hired 2 people, which I don't know if they've actually fully notified their current employer. So I'm going to hold off on saying who they are, but just so you know that we are working diligently on filling all of our vacancies. So hopefully by mid-September, we will have all of our vacancies filled, and we will keep the Planning Commission updated on what that means for our workloads and your workloads and everything else. And that's all I had.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead and go to the items that are public hearings. The first is the ground lease area at approximately 1269 South Legacy View Street. Case number PLN PCM 2021-00669. Chrissy Gilborn will be presenting that.
Thank you. John or Marlene, if I could just get the share button so I can share my screen. Please, thank you. Okay. So I'm assuming you can all see that. So this is a petition for a conditional use to enlarge the area used for ground equipment that is part of a project to co-locate wireless antennas on an existing monopole at 1269 South Legacy View Street. The subject parcel is zoned M1, light manufacturing, and the proposal qualifies for a streamlined review under FCC regulations, which is gone into in your staff report. But this is required to go before the commission because it's in the inland port overlay zone, which requires planning commission approval. And upfront staff is recommending approval. So the size of the ground lease area is proposed to be 18 feet by 25 feet. And you can see that in the green on your screen. So the existing ground lease area is just below that. You can see the rectangle below that, and then the green is the proposed new area. And then you can also see the new antennas, which are the gray ones on the bottom, which are co-located with other wireless providers. The zoning ordinance encourages and permits co-location of equipment, but requires conditional use review if the ground lease equipment does not fit into the current leased area, which is why this proposal needs conditional use approval. The additional ground lease area will be fenced using the same material as the existing fence. The larger parcel upon which the equipment is located is 3.9 acres in size. So the proposed increased ground lease area is minimal when compared to the parcel size, as well as the surrounding manufacturing zoning. So it should have no more impact or detrimental effects than the current leased area. So as far as public process, the recognized community organization, the Glendale Community Council, was notified, and they did request a presentation at their July meeting. The applicant and myself were there, and they didn't express any concerns at that point, and I did not receive a letter from them. And then the early notification to property owners was sent out, and I also did not receive any comments from the public. So staff is recommending the Planning Commission approves the conditional use, and that concludes my presentation, but I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Chrissy at this time? Okay, if not, we'll move on to a public hearing. I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here from the Glendale Community Council meeting? I'm sorry.
The applicant is also on the line, just so you know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Sorry. Let's go ahead and hear from the applicant first.
Hi, my name is, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you for allowing us to be here. We appreciate the opportunity. My name's Liz Walker. I'm here on behalf of AT&T, and along with me on the meeting link is Brian Seek, who's with SmartLink, and also here on behalf of AT&T. And I think Chrissy summarized all the important details for you, but we're here just to say thank you for consideration of our request. And we are here to also answer any questions you have about the application.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, then we will go ahead and proceed to the public meeting. Is there anyone here from the Glendale Community Council? If you would like to speak on this issue, please be sure to raise your little hand by hitting on the participants button and looking, and then there'll be a little, you'll see a little hand raised button there.
Madam Chair, I didn't see any hands, and I don't think we've received any emails on this either.
Okay. Great. In that case, I will go ahead and close the public meeting and bring it back to the commission for motion or discussion.
Madam Chair, I'm ready to make a motion.
Thank you.
Based on the information in the staff report, the information presented, and the input received during the public hearing, I move that the Planning Commission approve conditional use PLN PCM 2021-00669.
Thank you, Amy. Is there any second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Maureen. I have a motion from Amy and a second from Maureen. So Maureen,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Adrian,
Yes.
I heard that one. John,
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
Okay, that's it. It is approved. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our second item on the agenda, the West Temple duplex plan development at approximately 1048 South West Temple. It's now case number PLN SUB 2020-00174. And it's Chrissy Gilmore again.
Yes, thank you. So this is a request for approval of 2 new lots to accommodate a duplex development at 1048 West Southwest Temple in the RMF 35 zone. The applicant is requesting modification to the zoning rules under a planned development to allow for new lots that do not meet the lot area or lot width requirements. The requested relief from lot area is approximately 8,000 square feet to 6,000 square feet and lot width from 50 feet to approximately 37 feet for the new duplex lot. The lot proposed for existing single-family home meets the zoning standards and no relief is requested. Again, this is in the RMF 35 zone, which allows for multifamily and single-family development. For a duplex considered a 2-family dwelling, the provisions of the zone are a max height of 35 feet and a front setback of 10 feet, rear setback of 25, and side setback of 4 on one side and 10 on the other. 2 parking stalls are required for each unit. And in this proposal, you can see for the new duplex, 4 parking stalls are provided in the rear of the lot adjacent to the alley. There is no access from from West Temple, and the parking will be accessed only through the alley. This is the elevation renderings of the development. The applicant is proposing to build 1 up-down duplex. The primary entrance faces West Temple with an internal hallway leading to each unit. The primary materials are woodlap siding, fiber cement vertical siding, and glass. So for background on the design, the applicant brought the proposal to the Planning Commission in June of 2020 with a different design. The Planning Commission had concerns with the design and whether it fit the neighborhood context and if the front facade adequately engaged the street. The Planning Commission tabled the item to give the applicant a chance to address their concerns. The applicant then hired a new architect and is now proposing a fully redesigned product that includes elements that better reflect the existing neighborhood character and street engagement, such as a pitched roof, window details, and porch details. So as far as development potential and lot character, the lot could be developed without this process if the single family home were to be demolished. The existing lot is approximately 14,300 square feet, and has the lot width and area to accommodate a density of 5 attached multifamily units. It is the opinion of staff that a new duplex, while retaining the existing home, is a better fit for the neighborhood. As shown, by subdividing the lot, it would not be out of character for the neighborhood, as most of the lots would also be narrow and skinny and are about 6,000 square feet. Overall, the proposal meets the housing goals and plan development objectives to broaden the range of housing types, specifically missing middle housing, which is lower scale multifamily housing that are not bigger than a large house and generates enough density to support transit and local community amenities. And then the screen also shows that the area is in transition and there is a wide mix of housing types in the area as shown on the screen, which are on the block face and just around the corner. So here are some site photographs. The house in the center is the existing house that will be retained. And then on the left is where those trees are, is the proposed duplex lot. On the bottom left, you can see the site again with the context of the adjacent home. And then the bottom right is the alley where the parking will be accessed. So in conclusion, staff believes that the modifications do result in a better product, as the lot will be more compatible in lot width and area, and it also complies with the master plan expectations for the area. We did receive 3 public comments, 2 in support and 1 against the proposal. And the Ball Park Community Council heard the item at their May 2020 meeting. And at that time, they didn't have any concerns and staff did not receive a letter from them. So in summary, staff is recommending conditions with approval, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Thank you.
Is the applicant here?
He is.
Okay.
Adam, I think.
Hey, Mr. Sabers, you're muted. Go ahead to unmute and there you go.
Well, thank you so much, Chrissy. I think you did a great job explaining the project, and appreciate everyone for listening in here tonight. Based on the feedback I received last summer from the Planning Commission, I went back to the drawing boards and totally redesigned the architecture to fit the neighborhood. The house now has a pitched roof and a front deck, which is similar to a lot of the houses on the street. I'd like to add too that, this lot has sat vacant for over 30 years. And since I've been involved in the project for, a little bit over a year now, I've just seen junk and trash on the site. So by adding this here, it will do a lot to just kind of aesthetically clean up the area. I also want to, just add in that I believe this new design is very compatible with similar homes in the area. There are homes that were built a while ago that do sit on narrow lots similar to mine. Also, by adding in this building, it is more compatible with the current neighborhood in terms of look and feel than if the owner were to demolish the home and do a new townhome or a multifamily project in the area. I would love to help answer any questions that you guys might have about the duplex. Thank you.
Thank you. So commissioners, do you have any questions for staff or applicant at this time? Hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and move to the public hearing. First, asking if there's anyone from the Ball Park Community Council who would like to speak. If you are, please raise your tiny little hand. And would anyone else like to speak? Go ahead and if you would like to speak, go ahead and put your hand up.
Hey, Brenda, I think there might be some issues with the sound. I think they can hear us, but their ability to speak. So what I want to do is basically turn on everybody's microphone on the attendee list and then turn it back off to see Everybody
Okay.
that I've turned off and on, it's fixed. I just want to let people know. So if you are speaking, I am going to turn everybody on. And then we'll try to turn them off and make sure everybody can speak if they want to. Let's see. It did work for a few people. I'm not seeing anybody that has their hand raised to speak.
We did receive 3 letters on this, but these letters were from last year. It should be noted. So they are not responding to the current proposal.
Right. So anybody who, if anyone wants to speak and they're struggling at all with the sound, we can make them a panelist. They just need to raise their hand and let us know that they want to speak. So I don't see any right now, but we can definitely make sure people can speak if they would like to.
And if you're not having any luck, shoot a quick email to us at, I forgot it. What's the
Hey.
email address again?
It's planning.comments@slcgov.com. Hey, John, we did receive an email if somebody wanted to speak. It was a Mary Cox, and I'm wondering if the person that's MARC on here is that
Okay.
person.
Okay, so if it's Mark or Mary, what I can do is just make them a panelist and see if they would like to speak. Just so you know, if we move you to a panelist and your camera's on, you are going to be on camera. So I do want to let you know ahead of time. So Mark, we made you a panelist, or Mary, did you want to speak on this item? I just have the name as MARC. Yeah.
You are not able to, you can also write something and we can read it into the record.
Yeah, I can't get them to actually get their, usually there's a little headphone next to you if you're able to speak, and this one they're not able to right now. So let's see what we can do here. I guess the issue is now, I just want to make sure nobody's raised their hand. I think we just want to make sure if they would like to speak, they can indicate that. If there's anybody who's in the attendee list, can you click on your little hand to indicate you could speak, just so we can test it and make sure it's working?
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Thank you.
Okay, so it looks like the hand function is working. So I think we just don't have anybody who wants to speak on this item right now. Thank you for testing that. We appreciate it.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to the commission for a discussion or a motion.
I'll pipe up really briefly. Adam, you may remember that I was probably one of the more vocal ones when you were here last year. And I never had a problem with the lot size or anything. It was really how it interacted with the pedestrians facing. And I'll just tell you, this design is substantially better in achieving that. So thank you for taking that time and doing something that will last a long time and be a benefit to the entire community. So I'm really pleased with what you brought back, and I think it'll be a really good addition to the neighborhood.
Madam Chair, I'm ready to make a motion.
Thank you, Sarah. Please go ahead.
Based on the information based on the information in the staff report, the information presented and the input received during the public hearing, I move that the Planning Commission approve petition PLNP CM 2020-00174 with the conditions listed in the staff report.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion from Sarah and a second from, was that Adrian?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Maureen,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Adrian,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
So the motion passes 5-0. Congratulations. Thank you all for attending. And good job, I would say, on the redesign. And I also just want to mention, it's not that the Planning Commission does not like modern design, because we have often preferred modern designs, but this is a much nicer accomplishment for the neighborhood. So our next is number 3, and I am going to recuse myself and turn the meeting over to Amy.
Okay, so we will move on to the next agenda item, which is a conditional use and special exception at 1228 South, 800 East. Petition number PLN PCM 2021-00009, detached accessory dwelling unit. I just want to clarify for the commissioners and the public, we have 2 separate things happening here. The accessory dwelling unit, the ADU, is under the conditional use portion of this petition. It is the condenser air conditioner that is the special exception. So just so we can keep those in mind as separate things. And Sarah is the planner. And if you are ready to start, Sarah, go.
Thank you, Chair. Could I have the share presenter control? Thank you. As stated, this is a proposal for an accessory dwelling unit and special exception for the setback of an AC condensing unit at 1228 South, 800 East. The property is zoned R15000. On the photo on the left, you can see an aerial photo of the property that highlights the location of the proposed ADU in the rear yard. And then the photo on the right is of the existing dwelling on the property. The site plan for the ADU shows it set back 33 feet 6 inches from the rear of the existing dwelling and approximately 10 feet from the rear of the property. The north side yard setback is 4 feet 10 inches. The AC unit would be in this yard, and the special exception is for it to be less than 4 feet from a property line. It is proposed to be 3 feet 4 inches. And to the south, the setback is 4 feet 2 inches. The ADU would be approximately 35 feet to the closest dwelling on an adjacent property, and the condensing unit would be 15 feet from the nearest structure, which is an accessory structure on the lot to the north. And in the next slide, you can see that the entries, and there's an entrance from the rear or the west adjacent to the parking pad, and then also a door onto a patio that faces the rear of the dwelling on the site. And then this slide shows the existing, sorry, I got ahead of myself here. This slide shows the existing conditions on the left and then the proposed ADU and parking pad on the right. And then this slide shows the 4 elevations of the proposal. The east elevation, which would face the rear of the existing dwelling, is on the top left. The south elevation is on the top right. The windows that are in close proximity to the adjacent property would have obscured glass. And then the north elevation is on the bottom left, and it has 2 clerestory windows. The west elevation is on the bottom right, and it has the utility access and entry from the parking pad. As far as public comment, staff has received 2 emails from residents of Lake Street in opposition to the proposal and a letter from ELPCO in support of the proposal, and these were included in the Dropbox for the commissioners. And staff's recommendation is for the approval of the conditional use for the accessory dwelling unit and the special exception for the setback of the AC condensing unit as indicated in the staff report. And that concludes staff's presentations. Let me know if there are questions for staff at this time. And the applicant is also here and can present.
All right, commissioners, any questions for Sarah? All right, so we have the applicant, Jason Wheeler, I believe. Are you here, Jason?
It's actually me, Sam.
Sam, okay.
Yep.
Wonderful. Welcome, Sam. If you want to go ahead, you have 10 minutes for your presentation. Feel free to not take all of that. Time is yours.
Can I share my screen real quick?
You can. Let me get that for you.
Okay. Yeah, Sarah did a great job of kind of giving a quick overview of our ADU proposal for the Benham ADU proposal. But I just real quick wanted to mention that, so our organization, we are a community design center, a nonprofit architecture firm that only takes on projects that we feel benefit not only community members, but the community as a whole. And the reason we took on this project is because we feel like it addresses several kind of issues that are important not only to the community member or the homeowner, but to the community as a whole. The objectives for this ADU were first to facilitate a multi-generational living experience. This ADU is going to be for the mother of the homeowner, and her mother is currently living in the basement of the home right now. And the living conditions in the basement are not ideal for her mother, who is a retired school teacher, and so is looking for kind of an improved living conditions, and this ADU is going to facilitate that. And so as a result, this home is designed to be an accessible kind of zero entry unit, where the individual can continue to age within this unit for a long time. And so we believe this unit provides kind of accessible, sustainable, and equitable, affordable housing far into the future. We also took care in designing this unit that it respects kind of the surrounding accessory structures, both in form, massing, and scale. You can see it's not a super tall unit, and fits in well with the surrounding scale of the neighborhood. As Sarah mentioned, it meets all of the requirements for the kind of the ADU ordinance and the conditional use application. I will mention, because we have had some comments regarding parking, that we are providing an off-street parking stall on the alleyway. So we're providing one off-street parking stall. And since the resident is currently living in the basement, we're actually not increasing the demand for parking on the area at all, because the resident is currently living in the home. We're just kind of relocating her to the back of the property in the ADU that will be constructed. Yeah, and I'm happy to, our special exception is just, so we placed the special exception, we're requesting the special exception because we believe that the AC condenser unit works best kind of in this current location near the back of the property within the setback, because that allows us to put as much distance as possible between kind of the existing neighboring residents and the noise that's created by the proposed HVAC condenser. It will be concealed by kind of a 6-foot tall fence. So we believe that this is the best location for it. Alternatively, we would be forced to kind of locate it at the front of the ADU unit, but that in turn places it a lot closer to the neighboring residents, and then increases the amount of noise that the neighboring residents can hear. So I will stop sharing, and yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions that either the commissioners or anybody has regarding the ADU.
Thank you for that presentation, Sam. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant at this time? All right. Did I hear something? Okay. John, any representative of the community council as we open up the public hearing?
Not that I can see on the attendee list.
And I guess the next question, any hands raised or any emails received?
There are no hands raised for anybody. If they joined late, if you would like to speak, you would need to click on the little hand at the bottom right-hand corner, indicating to us that you would like to speak. I currently don't see any, and I do not think, Nick, that we've received any emails, have we?
Just the ones mentioned by Sarah in her presentation.
Right.
In the Dropbox.
They are. All right, then, seeing no public comments further, we'll close the public comment portion of this agenda item and bring it back to the commissioners. If there are Questions, comments, discussion, or if somebody would like to make a motion, it is a two-parter. So there'll need to be two different motions for this one.
I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Thank you, Adrian.
Start with the conditional use request. Based on the information listed in the staff report, the information presented, and the input received during the public hearing, I move that the commission approve the request for a conditional use for an accessory dwelling unit at 1228 South, 800 East, as presented in petition PLN PCM 2021-00009, with the conditions listed in the staff report.
Okay, do I have a second for the conditional use motion?
I'll second.
Maureen, thank you. All right, we'll take a vote. Sarah?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And Adrian?
Yes.
Okay, I would now entertain a motion for the special exception.
Go ahead and make that motion.
Thank you.
Based on the information listed in the staff report, the information presented, and the input received during the public hearing, I move that the commission approve the request for special exception for a condensing unit located less than 4 feet from the north lot line of the property at 1228 South, 800 East, as presented in petition PLN PCM 2021-00777, with the conditions listed in the staff report.
I'll second.
Thank you, Maureen. I have a motion from Adrian and a second from Maureen. We'll take the roll call. Sarah?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Adrian?
Yes.
All right, both of those motions passed unanimously. Thank you, Sam. Your good luck in your build, and I think it'll be a good asset to the neighborhood.
Thank you. Thanks, commissioners.
Thank you. And we'll turn it back to Brenda.
Thank you, Amy. We're now on agenda item number 4, the zoning map amendment and master plan amendments for the properties located at 1948 and 1950 Southwest Temple Street. We are looking at case numbers PLN PCM 2021-00291 and PLN PCM 2021-00292. And the hardest working man in showbiz, David Gellner, is our planner.
Thank you for that, Madam Chair. I don't know about that, but anyhow. Okay, so this is the a rezone and master plan as amendment, as you noted, for 2 properties on Southwest Temple. We'll start sharing my screen. Let's see here. I think I need the presenter privilege on that. Oh, there we go. All right, you should be seeing my presentation now. Okay, so this particular zoning map and master plan amendment, it's a requested change from the RMF 35 multifamily residential zone to CG general commercial. It involves 2 parcels. One of those parcels is split zoned and the majority is CG, and a smaller parcel that's undeveloped and zoned RMF 35. The applicant has expressed a desire for uniform zoning on the properties, and they have future expansion plans for their office space onto the front of the property closer to Southwest Temple. There isn't a specific site development plan under consideration at this time. Here's an overview, kind of aerial view showing the property. And the one is the larger property is split zoned, and the smaller green sliver is the completely RMF 35 property that fronts on Southwest Temple. From a zoning map perspective, here's a more wide view. It's at the edge of a larger CG zone that exists in the city, and just the very front of the property is zoned RMF 35, as well as this adjacent property. A little bit more of a close-up. To give you an idea, the larger property is About 92% of it is zoned CG already, and this portion at the front, 8% or 0.311 acres is zoned RMF 35. And then the second parcel is completely RMF 35, and it's also about 0.311 acres. So if the lots were combined, you're looking at 4.24 acres, and about 85% of that is zoned CG at the present time. And they're looking to rezone the remaining 15% of that combined area and combine the parcels. Key considerations in staff analysis, we looked at the compatibility with adjacent properties, the desire for uniform CG zoning on the entire parcel, citywide and neighborhood master plans, and consideration of alternate zoning districts. Again, the other considerations, as I mentioned, I'm repeating that, is that the majority is already zoned CG, and the parcel is already largely developed for the operations of Intermountain Wood on this site. And again, their stated intent is to develop that new office. This is similar to the Oakland construction property immediately to the south, which went through a rezoning a number of years ago. It had the same kind of split zoning situation, and they were expanding their office to the front of the parcel at along Southwest Temple. Here's some existing conditions photographs. This is from Southwest Temple, looking east with a little bit of a south slant, and the larger building you see that extends up to the street is Oakland Construction Offices. This is from about the gate on the CG parcel looking towards Southwest Temple, towards the southeast. And this is looking due south along the frontage of the parcels along Southwest Temple. The zoning allowances, the CG portions of the property that are zoned that already would allow 60 feet by right and up to 90 feet through the design review process. If the property were redeveloped, additional landscaping and buffering would apply for anything over the 60-foot height limit. And there is a landscape buffer of 15 feet required if it's abutting residential. We found that the proposal complied with the factors for a zoning map amendment, and the master plan proposal to change that is it's being amended to provide consistency with the zoning change. So staff is recommending that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to City Council for both the proposed zoning map and master plan amendments.
Thank you. Are there any questions for David at this time?
I do.
Yeah.
So David, on the future land use map, these are calling for medium density residential, which is consistent with its current zone, yeah?
Consistent with the RMF 35 portion, yes. Obviously, the CG wouldn't be consistent with what the future land use map is showing.
Can you give me a kind of a history of how this CG zone, like, was it kind of grandfathered in when the last master planning bit happened, that it was already there, and so that's why it's still CG? I'd like to get a little better understanding of that.
I think that, again, when we rezoned this area of the city, we made it reflective of the development that was there. So along that portion of Southwest Temple, there are a number of those heavier commercial uses, if you will. So it was zoned that, and again, I'm not sure the rationale for why we went with a split zone and went with residential along the street.
Okay, I feel like the residential is more in line with what you see and interact with when you're on West Temple, and Oakland sticks out, like, not in a good way, in terms of on this section. So I just wanted to get a better understanding, but I appreciate your response.
So I have a question about that too, David. In what way is a CG zone compatible with the residential frontage that extends all the way up and down south northwest Temple. You said there was a lot of manufacturing and commercial, but that's not really true. I was out there today driving up and down, and all I saw was a few multifamily places and a lot of single family residential. So I'm wondering how the CG zone is compatible with that.
And again, the properties that are zoned CG on there tend to have more their office uses, more fronting Southwest Temple. So that's
They don't have to. If we recommend a change to CG, they can put a warehouse there, right?
that is correct.
And a vehicle parking, they could put a big parking lot there. Is that correct?
Correct. They would be allowed to develop what the zone allows.
Right, of course. So, you know, whatever they might tend to do is one thing, but they are not really proposing to do any specific thing. So this opens it up for them to, they could put a 7-Eleven there, right?
If it's allowed in the CG zoning district.
Yeah, but basically these commercial areas are the CG is a zone that I thought we were trying to get rid of.
And again, this particular area, it's sort of around on 300 West, of course, is all CG in those commercial zones. And as we get east of 300 West, this is sort of one of those areas where we have sort of CG running more into where it becomes residential.
Right,
So
it sort of backs up. It sort of, CG sort of backs up to residential. So my suspicion is that the intent of the zoning being RMF 35 was to keep the more commercial things sort of back away from the frontage of the street. That's just a comment. I will go ahead and, does anyone else have any questions for David?
I have one question. David,
Yes.
is there a reason you didn't include the consolidation of the parcels as a condition to the rezone?
No, we don't typically, because they're separate properties, we don't include that, but I'm not sure if we should have recommended that, didn't think of that.
Okay, is the applicant here?
Yes, they are online.
Okay, let's go ahead and hear from them.
Okay. John, if you're unmuting, it's Paul Washburn, Taylor Smith, and Brad Banks.
Yeah, so Paul Washburn's been moved over. I can unmute him, or he can unmute himself if he'd like. Taylor Smith. The one who may have some issues is Brad Banks. I'm not able to unmute or mute him for some reason, so.
Okay.
But
Brad is with the Banks group that is the property owner.
right, that's what I'm saying is I don't know that I'm going to be able to. I mean, Paul Washburn is unmuted now.
Okay, thank you.
And we will try and get these other ones on here. I don't know what's going on tonight. Sorry about this. I think Taylor Smith, you are unmuted as well. For some reason, you had two logins, so one is muted and one is not. And Brad Banks, it looks like you're unmuted as well. So I guess we got all of them. Thanks. Sorry. Appreciate your patience.
Thank you. This is Paul Washburn. Can you hear me all right?
We can.
Thank you very much. The intention of this zone change, master plan change, is to allow the Banks Group to build a small office building in the area that is now covered with grass. The office that they're utilizing now is actually built on top of a dock area that I think has been there historically, probably back from the 1950s. And they have some issues with ADA access, also being an older structure, the ability to, have all the IT equipment in place that they need to have. All of those things are a problem. So the intent is to build a 6,000-foot office space. It will be 34 feet in height at its highest point. We are going to add, I think, to the overall site, about 42 parking stalls. We're very conscious that we don't want parking to spill onto the street. We'll actually end up with better parking than we have now. One of the reasons this site has worked out so well for this company is the rail access that it has to the west end of the property. They sell various hardwoods to different companies within the city. That has been a real benefit. Plus the location, the ability for customers to find them and for them to be able to get the customers. So at any rate, I'm glad to answer any questions you might have. As far as the request for the zoning, that's what was recommended to us by staff, and that we're just doing the best we can with that. But we would like to be able to add on to the site and be able to get the office space that we need.
Thank you. Did anyone else on the applicant team want to speak? Mr. Washburn? Mr. Banks, sorry.
I think Mr. Washburn has stated our position clearly.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? All right, let's go ahead and move to the public hearing. I'm opening the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak about this project?
We do have a representative from the community council. So we got Amy Hawkins, and I'm going to see what we can do to get this to work for her. I have it unmuted, Amy, but I'm curious if you're able to speak. Okay, what I'm going to try and do is make her a panelist and see if that will help. Or though, all right, let's unmute. Amy, can you hear us?
I can hear you very well. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
I can. That's great. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yay. So please go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all for
5
your
minutes,
time.
I'm sorry, you have 5 minutes because you're community council. Sorry.
Oh, very fancy. I appreciate that. So I wanted to start by saying thank you guys for your time and thank you for bothering to engage the community in this process. I know it's a requirement, but not everybody does it, you know, with consideration and kindness, and everybody has in this project. I appreciate that the majority of the Intermountain Wood property is already zoned for general commercial, but I think what we need to consider, particularly important to the residents, are the parcels that they're requesting to rezone from RMF 35 are immediately adjacent to the street closest to the single family homes across the street. But at the same time, if I read zoning tables correctly, I see that office is not a permitted use in RMF 35. So I very much understand why a company might want to change the zoning to fit their needs. But this was brought up, I'm sorry I didn't catch the name of the commissioner who brought this up, but we're concerned that by changing the zoning and going through the design review process, that we could get a building up to 90 feet. And that's happened for several general commercial zones in Ballpark in the past several years. Particularly, you know, 75-foot tall apartment buildings seem to be sprouting up in our neighborhood regularly. And we don't necessarily feel like our neighborhood is getting the infrastructure that would be needed to support that density. We still don't have pedestrian level lighting. We still don't have conditions that adequately support public safety. For example, we had 4 homicides in our neighborhood last year. So what was proposed during the meeting and what David Gellner and also Councilmember Mana were discussing during the meeting was a development agreement to limit the height of future development. I understand the property owner was amenable to that. However, yes. I also understand that this is not a planning commission situation, that this is a city council matter. But I did want to make sure, I understand that this recommendation is in the staff report, and I just wanted to make sure that this recommendation also went by you. The neighborhood strongly supports a height limit on this property because we really feel that you know, a 90-foot tall apartment building is not a suitable use across the street from single-family homes. And I understand that the company has plans to build a 35-foot tall office building at present, well, or that's the stated intent. But it seems to be becoming extremely profitable to put up 90-foot tall apartment buildings in the neighborhood. So we would really love for that height limit to be somehow attached to the property, if at all possible, through the course of this rezoning. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this issue?
There are no other raised hands at the moment.
There were a couple of comments included in your staff report from neighboring property owners.
Okay.
And Commissioner, if I just, for those who are there, if for some reason you have any trouble, the chat is open, which we normally don't open during these meetings but it is open. So if you have something you want to say or a question, we will make sure to answer that.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion.
So, David, and the applicant, following up on Brenda's consternation, I share it, in that whenever we look at a new zone, it really is what you could do. And so there are multiple things that you could do that I have a problem with. One would be height, but the other one would be how that you don't have a parking lot in front, that it actually complements your surrounding, notwithstanding Oakland. Oakland is not a good example of what fits in that neighborhood. It really doesn't interact well, and it wasn't designed to do that. So, I'm worried about how your office building would look and function with that interaction to the street, that there wouldn't be a parking lot in front, that it would kind of have a feel that fits. And that I worry that if we support, or if I support a rezone, that then you can do all the things that you want to do. I'm not against you expanding your business, but I don't necessarily think that what could happen under a CG zone is beneficial or appropriate for that area of West Temple. And Oakland is not one that I would look at of wanting to duplicate. So I'm still struggling with that. And I don't know, David, if you have some comments to that, or the applicant has some comments to that.
I do.
That's where I'm at.
This is the applicant again. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you very much. We have turned into the city a concept site plan. The office building will have a handicap stalls on the north side of the building. It would be somewhat visible from the street, but not highly visible. The majority of the parking would be to the west side of the building. I think we're trying to be conscious of that as well. The majority of the site would either have the building or landscaping. As far as the building height, we have no intention of doing anything different. This is a very profitable business. It's a business that needs to have that access to the railroad. There is no intent in trying to change it to some kind of a residential application. As was mentioned in our neighborhood meeting, we're more than happy to enter into a development agreement with the city council to limit the height. I think if it is I'm not sure whether they do a chicken and egg thing here, but even the site plan or a concept plan for the site plan, I think we'd be glad to enter into a development agreement with that as well. We're not trying to do anything different than what we are proposing. And I understand the distrust that's out there these days. It's part of the times we live in, but we just would like to do what we want to do. And we're not planning on building a taller structure than the 34 feet.
Mr. Washburn, how long have you guys been on this site?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand that.
How many years have you occupied this site?
I think Mr. Banks could probably answer that better than I could.
The parcel to the north was initially built and used by Waterworks Equipment Company, who were using the artesian wells in the area to test meter equipment. That was built in the late 50s. The parcel to the south was originally built by Hewish Distributing for detergent manufacturing, and it was built in 1955. We acquired the parcel on the south, the Hewish building, in 1969. We acquired the parcel on the north from Waterworks Equipment Company in the late 50s.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I have a question for David. What other zoning, is there not another zone that would provide these gentlemen with what they need without opening it up to all kinds of other possibilities?
Very few. It would be still a commercial zone, and one of the stated desires is to not have it split zone, because that does lead to some building code problems when you're developing, as far as maybe setback separation. It's still, depending where that office is situated exactly on the parcel, it could have different setbacks on different part of that property. So when we're trying to eliminate a split zone parcel, typically we're trying to get it uniformed and not kind of just shift the problem of split zoning to a lesser version of the problem that already exists.
I see.
I do understand, though, the
Yeah, I understand that.
concern.
Yeah, but I am concerned about just sort of opening it up to whatever. I think that this could be a very nice office building. I was out there today, and I think it could be a very nice addition to the neighborhood. But also, I am concerned that it could have far more of a warehouse feel to it, and that would definitely not be appropriate on what is really a family residential street for the most part. So, notwithstanding the very lovely but kind of overwhelming Oakland building to the south. Okay, is there, and I guess the question is there anything that we can say in our motion to the effect that we recommend or can we say in our motion that we recommend that the city council develop a developer agreement with the applicant?
I think I would want Nick to weigh in on that, because I know there's been some consternation from city council in the past. Although in this particular case, it was the council member from the area that brought up the idea of the development agreement.
Well, this is Nick. I think you can make whatever motion you feel is appropriate. And if that includes recommending the council enter a development agreement to address some of the issues you've talked about, then, how the council feels about that is up to the council. But,
yes, of course.
But planning commission, I mean, you're part of your task and your duty is to identify and come up with recommendations on master plan and land use regulations. And so if you identify issues and concerns, then you should express what those are. And if you don't feel like there's a way to overcome those, then you should probably consider recommending denial of a proposal. But if you think there is a way that you could get that you can make something happen, then it's okay to add those elements to whatever motion a commissioner chooses to make. I will point out that this particular application is identifying one of the issues that we have with our zoning code in general, is that it doesn't allow these medium scale types of uses. We run into it in the RMF zones with density, and we've had people apply for RMU zones to get around those density limitations, and they end up with development agreements saying don't do no commercial uses, that it's residential only. And this is the opposite of that. We're having a situation where we just do not have zoning districts that allow for those medium scale office buildings, those things that are between 30 and 45 feet. And, or even 60 feet, I think is actually more realistic. So just something to think about as we hopefully down the road start talking more about some zoning changes and zoning reform.
Thank you. I thought we had an office and residential zone or something that we were trying to get rid of.
OR, but that allows for even taller buildings.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's,
Okay,
I would
never
say
mind.
that would be an ideal. I would suggest that we do recommend that the rezoning be conditioned upon the execution of a development agreement that's negotiated between the city council and the applicant to address building height and the specific development components for the site. I would also suggest that we say that the parcels should be consolidated because the justification and reasoning behind the request is to expand the campus. It's not to leave this parcel as a separate standalone parcel that could be developed independently. But those are my thoughts.
I tend to agree with that. Anybody have any strong objections to that kind of or are we in consensus here?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
It was our intention to consolidate the parcels. So again, that's something we don't have any problem with.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Okay. So Adrian, would you like to go ahead and make a motion, please?
Sure. Based on the findings and analysis in the staff report, testimony, and discussion at the public hearing, I move that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the proposed master plan and zoning map amendment for the properties located at 1948 and 1950 Southwest Temple, as requested through the following applications and with the following recommended changes. So the applications are Master Plan Amendment PLN PCM 2021-00292, proposed change to the future land use map in the central community master plan from medium density residential to medium density mixed use. Zoning map amendment PLN PCM 2021-00291, proposed change to the CG general commercial zoning district for the properties or portions thereof, zone RMF 35, moderate density multifamily residential, with the following additional changes. One, that both approvals are conditioned on the consolidation of the parcels owned by the applicant, and two, that the applicant and the city council enter into a development agreement to limit the height of future development and approve the final site plan for the rezone lot.
Thank you. Very well done.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Sarah. We have a motion from Adrian and a second from Sarah. So Maureen,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Adrian,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and Sarah.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes 5-0. And that is a terrific job, everybody. And thank you to the applicants and to David. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 5, called the Ward Over Height Fence Appeal. I am unclear if this has to have a public hearing or not. Can somebody clarify that?
Madam Chair, it was noticed for a public hearing.
Thank you, Caitlin. It is case number PLN APP 2021-00560, and Caitlin Tubbs will be representing, will be presenting the case.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Is everyone able to see my screen all right?
You are a little unclear. Caitlin, do you have headphones on, or can you somehow clear up your sound?
All right.
I turned off my video, so all of my bandwidth should be going to the microphone. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay. All right, and is everyone able to view the screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. As you said, this is an appeal of a staff level decision. It was a denial of a special exception request for an overheight fence at 179 West Paxton Avenue. The requested fence has been partially built. The applicant is asking for an 8-foot tall fence in the side and rear yards, and then a 5-foot 7-inch fence in the front side yard, and then a 4-foot tall fence along the front property line. This is located in the RMF 35 residential zoning district. And this is a graphic representation of the height request that the homeowner is making for that fence. The orange line is the 8-foot tall fence area. There is an 8-foot tall gate at the rear of the property that connects to the detached garage. The 5-foot 7-inch fence is indicated in light blue, and the 4-foot fence is indicated in red. So per the zoning ordinance for residential districts, a height of 6 feet is allowed for fences in the side and rear property lines. As you can see here, the applicant is requesting 8 feet. In the front yard area, the area that's denoted as the space between the front plane of the home and the front property line, the maximum height allowed by the zoning ordinance is 4 feet. The applicant is requesting 5 feet 7 inches as indicated in yellow. And then along the front property line, of course, that the proposed 4 feet does meet the allowable maximum height in the underlying zone. In the rear, this is, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Was somebody else speaking, or should I go?
No, please go ahead, Caitlin.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. And then this is a view of the rear of the property showing the 8-foot tall gate and the 8-foot tall fence in the rear yards, again, where a maximum height of 6 feet is allowed. For the special exception standards, I've outlined them in a little bit more detail in your staff reports, and then for brevity's sake, just boil them down to kind of the meat of the idea. So those are compliance with zoning ordinance and district purposes, no impairment of property values, no undue adverse impact on character, public health, safety, and welfare. It would need to be compatible with the surrounding development, not destruct significant features, and not contribute material amounts of pollution to the area. As you can see, we have the staff findings on the right in white that show that staff has determined that the fence is out of scale with other fences in the surrounding area and is not in keeping with the neighborhood character, and it's not compatible with the surrounding developments. The special exceptions chapter also lists some additional overheight fencing standards, which outline the opportunities in which additional fence height may be obtained. So those are if the fence is at least 80% non-site obscuring, which this is not. So the homeowner's fence is 100% site obscuring. If they are asking for additional height for a fence and are on a corner lot, then additional height may be given, but the homeowner's property is an interior lot. They're also not requesting the incorporation of any ornamental features, and the subject property is not a school or another approved recreational use, which would allow for additional fence height. The applicant states that there are negative effects from the surrounding neighborhood with regard to noise, light, and privacy on the site, which is why the applicant states they do meet these standards. However, staff has made the finding that an 8-foot tall fence would not provide any more benefit than a 6-foot tall fence would. And again, keeping within the character of the neighborhood, staff has made the finding that this is not in keeping with the character of the surrounding developments. Additionally, fences are not supposed to be creating a walled-in effect, especially in the front yard, whereas the proposed 4-foot fence, although it would meet the maximum height allowance, would just contribute to a walled-in feeling surrounding the property. These are some site photos, just in addition to those that were provided by the applicant. The top left is a view of the home from Paxton Avenue, indicating the side property line and where the fence just about touches the eave of the roof of the building to the west. And then the bottom right photograph, again, is just another view of the roof and side property lines. For the public process, we have sent out a public hearing notice. As part of the original special exception application, the PLM PCM 2021-00276, we did receive 2 public comments. One was in favor of the request and one was in opposition of the request. And then for this specific appeal request, we have also received 2 public comments, one in favor and again, one opposed. Both of those have been uploaded to the Dropbox. And that is everything that I have for you this evening. We do have the homeowner and his counsel on the line. If you have any questions for them or any questions for me, we are happy to hear those.
Thank you. Caitlin, does anyone have any questions for staff at this time? Commissioners, I mean. Okay, let's go ahead and hear from the applicant.
Hey, just if I could interrupt you, sorry.
Yeah.
There's 2 applicants, and it looks like we have Jeremiah Taylor, and you look like you're coming in clear, and that's good. Do you want to test your audio so we can hear you?
Yes, this is Jeremiah Taylor. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. So there's Mr. Clint Ward as well. And before I had it where it looked like, oh, okay, I think he can unmute and mute himself now as well. So looks good. Thank you.
So
Thank
please
you.
go ahead. You have about 10 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Jeremiah Taylor. I'm Mr. Ward's attorney. And really this special exception request boils down to the circumstance of reference in the ordinance that talks about negative impact due to light, encroachments on privacy, safety, security, and other aesthetics, noise. So the special exception ordinance allows what it calls additional height fences when the property is, when it is determined that a negative impact occurs as against the property for these reasons, these security, these privacy, these safety reasons. And the ordinance also mentions a standard that the fence is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. So really this appeal and this issue boils down to this balancing of Mr. Ward's right to protect his property and reduce the negative impact from security and safety issues, and balance that with keeping with the character of the neighborhood and urban design of the city. So the first relevant question for the commission is whether Mr. Ward's property experiences a negative impact relative to safety and security. And in answering this question, it's important to note that Mr. Ward's property is situated differently than any of the neighboring properties, because both the front and the back of his house, and most importantly, the back of his house, there are exposed to negative impacts that we address in our appeal and also that I will address here. And am I able to present to my screen?
You are, so the
Yes.
toolbar down at the
Yes.
bottom there should be.
I can take care of that for you.
Yeah, it looks like,
So there should be a toolbar at the bottom of your screen with options to share.
There you go.
okay. So, you can see here the, here. Mr. Ward's property is the one with the gray roof here, and you can see that the track
You've
station.
moved your content off the screen, Jerry.
What did I do?
It just rolled off the screen to the right, so maybe back, there it goes. Okay, there you are. See.
Okay, so these are just images that show that the back and the front of Mr. Ward's property are exposed to the goings and comings of both the trains on the tracks as well as pedestrians that exit the tracks. I'm going to scroll down here. Can you see me scrolling the images? Can you see me? Can you see it? Okay. So the second one here is an image of the alley from Mr. Ward's property, the back of his property, viewing the train there. If I scroll down further, here's an image from the street view toward Mr. Ward, the back of Mr. Ward's property. And then off in the distance here, you can see a train. That is the ballpark track station. So you can see the alley on the left with the puddles. That's the alley where Mr. Ward's property is. And then you can see how close the track station is. So this is really the main safety and security issue here, is that this whole alley is exposed to a variety of things, and we've submitted evidence on that. I'm going to talk a little bit about that quickly. So first of all, the tracks are elevated so people on the trains can see into Mr. Ward's backyard if there is only a 6-foot fence. And people disembarking from the trains, homeless people, others who frequently pass by the alley, we've submitted evidence of loitering, people doing drugs, people vandalizing, even defecating in the alley. We've even provided photographic evidence of each of these things. And the additional height helps shield Mr. Ward's backyard from the noise, the views, and the shenanigans of these individuals. We have also provided evidence that Mr. Ward's property and the surrounding area is the frequent subject of theft and vandalism. We provided, for example, in our appeal, I won't show it now for the interest of time, but 2 men stealing a generator, evidence of 2 instances of people stealing packages off of Mr. Ward's front porch, evidence of a homeless lady who cut a chain link fence to gain access into Mr. Ward's neighbor's side yard. I'm going to pull up, you see Exhibit R on your screen? Commission?
We see the words, we don't see any images.
Yeah, okay, I can scroll down. One neighbor said, quote, I've had people walk into my backyard and then run away after they find me there. Someone once stole a bicycle from my backyard, then returned it and stole a hula hoop right in front of me. Someone has tried to break into the house, tearing open a screen and trying to wedge open a window while I was home. I've had someone break padlocks off shed doors. I've seen countless people using the alley behind the house as a bathroom, and very few of them have even cared when I yelled at them to stop. I've heard far scarier tales from neighbors. Perhaps most notably, Mr. Ward stores his vehicles in his backyard, right next to the fence that creates the boundary with the alley, the shield to the alley, and the picture is included as Exhibit T. I'm going to pull that up now. This is included in our appeal, and as you can see, Mr. Ward stores his truck and his vehicle right behind the fence we're talking about. Before this fence was up, when there was only a 6-foot fence, someone broke into his backyard, broke into this truck, and stole a firearm. And Mr. Ward filed a police report, which we reference in our appeal. As you can see from this picture, the 8-foot fence blocks the vehicles from the view of those walking down the alley. Just a couple of weeks ago, a passerby picked up a rock and smashed out the back window of Mr. Ward's guest vehicle. And I'm going to play a video of that right now. If I can figure out how to stop sharing this screen and then share a different screen. I'm going to push play and see if this works. The video goes on, but I'll stop it there. This is the type of thing, we've submitted a sampling of evidence. These are the type of people that frequently walk by the alley, that get off the tracks, walk right by Mr. Ward's backyard. Even in this hearing, it has been mentioned that that there were 4 homicides last year in the ballpark area. This is that area. The track station, a few hundred feet from Mr. Ward's property, is the ballpark track station. 4 homicides that's been mentioned in this today in these public hearings. Also a lack of public safety in the ballpark area. Also low to no pedestrian lighting in some of the areas surrounding Mr. Ward's property. These have all been referenced today. Commission, I submit that based on this evidence, which again is only a sampling of what happens in this area, Mr. Ward's property is certainly the subject of negative impacts relating to security, safety, and privacy. And the additional height helps dissuade people passing by from viewing Mr. Ward's yard, accessing his backyard, accessing his vehicles, and his other property stored back there. The very existence of this special exception to allow additional height for safety and privacy purposes, the very existence of this ordinance shows that additional height does help dissuade these types of negative impacts, lessen them, and dissuade people from imposing them upon Mr. Ward's property. So that standard of the special exception ordinance has been met. Now, I'd like to quickly play for you.
So we need to wrap it up pretty quickly, Mr. Taylor, please.
Okay, I'll wrap it up quickly. I was going to play for you a recording, which I won't do, of the train tracks going by. It's very loud, and the fence, especially the additional 2 feet of height of the fence, helps lessen that noise. Now, the character of the neighborhood, I have to touch on this because this is the main thing that staff is recommending a denial of this appeal. The character of this neighborhood, I won't pull it up for the interest of time, but if you look at Exhibit V, it shows a variety of types of properties, varying degrees of styles, colors, curb appeal, varying types of fences, fences in the front, fences on the side and the back. I think it's safe to say that there's really not a consistent character of house or fence in this neighborhood. And I think many would agree that Mr. Ward's fence looks nice and actually adds to and benefits the character of the neighborhood. He spent a good amount of money on it. And even if there are no other 8-foot fences, that does not mean that his fence is not consistent with the character of the neighborhood. After all, that's why the exception exists, to allow a fence taller than others in the neighborhood if this negative impact applies. If there were ever a reason to exercise the Planning Commission's authority to allow a heightened fence, I would submit that this is it. And especially in the back, with the 8-foot gate and the 8-foot fence that blocks people passing by the alley. Also in the front, where he has the 8-foot gate in the front that prevents people from accessing the side of his house and therefore the back of his yard. I do have to say, I know I'm out of time, but I do have to say that there is an area where Mr. Ward is willing to concede, and that is the side of the fence that borders the neighbor's property. It seems to me like one of staff's main reasons for denying this was that the neighbor next door was concerned about the height in that it blocked the view of the tenants of the fourplex. Now, Mr. Ward can lower the fence to 6 feet in that area, but his right to protect his property from the back should allow the 8-foot fence. So he is reasonable. He is willing to lower that to 6 feet.
Okay.
It's next to the house.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let us go ahead and move and ask the commissioners if they have any questions at this time for the planner and staff or for the applicant. Not hearing any, I'm going to go ahead and move to public hearing. Is Ms. Hawkins again willing to speak on behalf of the community council?
Amy, did you want to speak on this item?
Actually, I didn't. I was curious to hear the discussion points because I know that this applicant is not the only person in the neighborhood who's applied for or at least expressed a desire for an above height fence before due to some of the public safety concerns that have been brought up. It's been an interesting discussion. I look forward to hearing more, frankly.
Thank you.
Commissioners, it looks like we do have one hand up. It's Alex Hamrick. Alex, you have 2 minutes. Feel free to share your thoughts with the commission.
So I'm someone who actually lives in this neighborhood, probably about 2 blocks from Mr. Ward's home. I have experienced some of the negative effects that we continually hear about. So personally, and looking around this neighborhood, it is very different. You have quite very nice places and not so nice looking places. And so in my opinion, I don't think his 8-foot fence looks bad. I saw it get put in. It looks very nice, and I can understand his concerns, and I don't think that there should be a problem with it, personally.
Thank you.
We can move on. It looks like we have one more. Paul Garcia, you have 2 minutes if you'd like to share your thoughts.
Hello there. Thank you for considering this motion, and thank you for sharing the process with myself. I am Mr. Ward's neighbor. I live across the street from him. You can see my house in one of the photos. I would strongly urge you to consider Mr. Ward's appeal and consider his request to lower the side fence. I've also experienced quite a substantial amount of vandalism. I've had my fence cut. I frequently find drug paraphernalia in my yard. It's just a daily occurrence. We realize that with the Volunteers of America facility in this neighborhood and the growing unhoused issue in Salt Lake City, that forces are spread pretty thin. And I would hope that the city would enable homeowners to protect their investments and, quite frankly, protect themselves. We've had fist fights. I've seen an axe fight, actual axes, right here on the corner of Paxton and 200 West. So this is a pretty serious issue outside of aesthetics. And if you do look at some of the neighboring fences, they are in disrepair. And that actually impacts the neighborhood poorly. It looks like owners here don't care. It looks like residents here are neglectful. And it makes us look like easy targets for continued vandalism. I had my camera on. I could show you the hole in my fence that was cut. But yes, especially given the situation of housing prices, taxes going up, which we completely understand. Oh, here's the tracks going by. You can hear that right there. I would strongly urge you to consider his request, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Are there any other persons wishing to speak?
Madam Chair, I do not see any hands raised, and I do not see any emails that have come in.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, bring this back to the Planning Commission for discussion and motion. Anybody? Would anyone make a motion?
I'm curious how others are viewing this and what is the view of the commission on this particular application or appeal, I should say. I mean, I'm completely sympathetic with the landowner here. I think it's a unique set of circumstances that he's dealing with and can understand.
Actually, that's my concern too. I do think that the special exception implies a unique situation rather than I'm just afraid of the things going on around my neighborhood.
Right.
There's a lot of bad stuff going on in my neighborhood. I mean, that would mean that the entire ballpark neighborhood would have an 8-foot fence. And I'm not in favor of that happening because I think actually research has shown that that kind of walling off actually makes it worse, makes crime less visible to people and who are in their homes. Things are going on in the alley that you can no longer see with a tall fence. And so it actually, research shows that taller fences do not make a neighborhood more secure. But I can see special circumstances where a particular property has a very special site condition that's a problem. Unfortunately, I see that if that's the case with this person and this site, it's also the case with 20 or 30 others up and down, very near there, up and down that alley and around the corner and so forth. So then we get into the situation which is really unsafe, which is to have a lot of 8-foot fences around the neighborhood. So that's sort of where my preference would be to maybe split the difference, as the applicant was suggesting, by having the fence height allowed to go up to 8 feet behind the wall of the apartment next door, but otherwise to have it be as allowed by code.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Brenda. I mean, I totally get the walling off parts of the city don't create safer places for anyone. But I do also understand and am empathetic with the issues that the landowner's facing. So I would support the split the difference approach as well. I don't know how others feel.
I'm with you. I mean, well, I'm with you and I'm sympathetic to the neighborhood. I'm sympathetic to this situation. But yeah, I don't know that I'm seeing a particular set of circumstances where we should make an exception here. Because exactly what Brenda just said, then we're making exceptions to 30 houses, 40 houses, and that I do not feel okay about. So if we're not going to do that, then I don't want to make an exception even on this one. That's my gut, but I'd like to hear what everyone else has to say.
So I'm kind of in line with Sarah. I think back on this is my 3rd year on the Planning Commission, and I think back on the handful of special exception requests for overhang fences that we've had, and they've all made very similar cases, and felt that they were unsafe, all that same stuff. So at some level, I do worry that where does it stop, and when will 8 feet not be tall enough? When will it be 10 feet? And where does those special exceptions end? And is this particular site any more unique than the other requests we received in my tenure that were basically laying out public safety issues in front of us as well?
Well, I'm called to mind the one up on in my neighborhood, in the Capitol Hill neighborhood, where the community was wanting a tall fence in the front of the property because of public nuisance that it created to have a view there. And we turned that one down.
I remember the one on 7th East and the one up in Federal Heights. There haven't been many.
Yeah.
But, they all come to us with, we are special. We have these, public nuisance, these public safety issues. And I don't know that, where is one actually really special and where is one that like, okay, we all have some of those similar problems. That's kind of where I'm still struggling to come up with, would I support this? Is this that much more special than what we've seen in the past? I don't know the answer to that yet. I don't know where I fall on that yet, but I'm listening to everybody as well.
John, do you have anything that you want to add to this discussion?
I mean, I agree with a lot of the planning issues of walling people out. It definitely is an issue when people jump the fence. What's going to stop them from jumping an 8-foot fence versus a 6-foot fence? If they're going to be able to jump one, they can probably jump another. Eyes on the street is really a way to keep people in check. And I agree. I think it's difficult. Like I have empathy, but it's hard when you make an exception. Then when do you stop making exceptions for everyone? So I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other comments? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Sarah.
Based on the information in the staff report, the information presented, and the input received during the public hearing, I move that the Planning Commission uphold the denial for an overheight fence special exception PLN PCM 2021-00276 and deny the appellant's petition PLNAPP 2021-00560 with the following findings. 1, the request does not comply with the adopted standards of approval.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Sarah and a second from Maureen. So Maureen?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Adrian?
No.
John?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
So the vote is 4-1, and so the upholding of the denial is passed. Thank you very much, everyone. Is there anyone else who has any other business for the Planning Commission? Okay. If not, I want to thank everybody. And look, it's only 7:15.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks.
Everybody have
Make
a
sure
good
we
night.
get more on the agenda next time.
Oh,
No, Nick, you can stop
I
that.
think we're okay. We're
Good
okay.
night.
We don't need
Thanks,
more.
everyone.
All right, bye-bye.